So, we're going to present to you how to reach enlightenment. But before we start, I just wanted to ask Felipe, do you remember how we met?
Of course, I remember how we first met. It's a very special memory of mine. We met through basketball. We became friends because of this game, and we used to play every day during recess. When we played, we used to believe that every time we made a shot, we would get magical powers because of it.
I was usually the best, I know it, even though he doesn't agree with me. But every time we made a shot, we made a basket, we really thought that we had magical powers, even though there was no ball levitation, no magic tricks or evidence to show it.
Since there was no backing up to our belief, we unconsciously believed in a dogmatic idea when we were those two little kids.
I'm sure that every single one of us believes in a dogmatic idea. Felipe, me, every single one of you. We defend it, we fight for it, and we never let them go. It's really difficult to let them go, but it's possible.
In this case, we're going to take someone in the crowd, which is Guz's mother. She used to believe in the idea that you couldn't go swimming right after eating, and this is because a superior told her so.
Thank you, Mom, for allowing us to tell one of your childhood stories.
So Felipe and I believe that dogmatic ideas are one of the most close-minded acts that we as humans can have. And why do we think this? Basically, because by embracing a dogma, we're letting go our opportunity to think critically. And therefore, we accept it with no previous questioning or a philosophical mindset. So Gus, could you please tell us what a dogma is?
Well, yes. A dogmatic idea is a set of principles laid down by an authority as unquestionably true. Depending on the situation, this can be considered a dogmatic or non-dogmatic idea.
So you must be asking yourselves now, how can we prevent falling into these dogmatic ideas? We can take Immanuel Kant as an example for this and his text, What is the Illustration?, where he explains how we are born into what he determines is an underage mindset, and only through critical thinking we can surpass this and reach enlightenment.
When having the liberty and the capacity to reach full age mindset, as Immanuel Kant, and living the underage mindset, we're entering into enlightenment. And this is why we're doing this TED Talk. We want every single one of you to reach enlightenment, to question the dogmatic ideas of society.
This image is the perfect representation for what we believe a dogmatic idea is. It's something that pulls you down and drives your critical thinking and your own ideas. So this is why we should never hang on to them and just let them go. But before we go any further, we have to take a few steps back in history and look at a couple of societies and see how enlightenment affected them. For this, we chose the Renaissance and the Dark Ages.
So on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm sure most of you have seen 22 Jump Street. When achieving enlightenment, a society shows rainbows, flowers, with enlightenment. So the Greek era, Plato, Socrates, and many other philosophers that are passionate about critical thinking and enlightenment are the tough guys of this. Also, the Renaissance, or mostly known the Golden Age, are a perfect society for enlightenment to happen.
As an example of a not so enlightened society is the Dark Ages. We took this image right here because we believe it's a very good representation, since it's your thoughts put into the darkness. Because in that time, the human being as a requisite had to be faithful to his kings and his king's beliefs. So all his own innovative ideas were just shoved into the darkness. But we don't have to go that back into history to look at an example like this. We can take the 1950s, and for this, we're going to play a little scenario where Guzman is going to be the authority right here.
I'm the authority in here. Women, you can't vote. Sorry, Mom. You can't own private property. And you can't think originally by yourself. Why? Because this is a dogmatic idea. No matter what, you have to follow this dogmatic idea.
But we don't want that, do we? Thankfully, as a society, we've progressed from this, and thankfully today, women are allowed to drive, they are allowed to vote, and most importantly, they are allowed to think by themselves. An example of this is this conference right here. Today, there's men and women presenting you their own ideas and their own beliefs in a topic that they believe is relevant. So this is why enlightenment can help us improve as a society. So please, let's give a round of applause for society into stepping one into making a step forward into enlightenment.
So most of you would be wondering, where are we at now? And this movie by Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times, represents where are our society nowadays. On this movie, the humankind is represented as a machine, where it has no liberty to think or to act.
From this movie, we have taken that we have to end this vicious cycle of just receiving information with no analyzing and just spitting it out. We have to take that information, analyze it, and through our own thinking, prove if it's correct or wrong. This can be seen with Guz's mother, going back to that example. She chose to give his kids the freedom to decide if they want to swim right after eating and discover what happened by themselves.
So we have developed a formula, which is liberty plus information equals knowledge and enlightenment. But as you can see, the dogmatic ideas are not a part of enlightenment. Why? Because dogmatic ideas close-minded you, and it takes away your liberty, and we don't want that. Enlightenment is the way to have the liberty and independence to think critically.
For this, we have to understand the difference between being informed and being knowledgeable. Being informed is just the capacity to maintain information that is given to you. But being knowledgeable is the ability to use this information in a real-life situation to make an input in society.
So let's take as an example technology. Most of you have smartphones. Gaviria, you have a smartphone. I have a smartphone. And we receive notifications. What's the weather outside? WhatsApp notifications, Snapchat, Donald Trump making a controversial statement, but we're using them wrong. We have to make an input in society in order to achieve enlightenment and also the liberty that we want.
A great example of how technology was used to break down a dogma was in the 1970s, where a couple of American scientists chose to research for their own if we have an input in climate change. After some investigation, they came to the conclusion that we do have an input and we are changing the climate. So because of technology, we managed to break down a dogma and end its repercussions.
Thank you, technology. And as you can see, this graph demonstrates how temperature in Earth has risen over the past years. And because of technology, we use it wisely in this case. We're ending that dogmatic idea that humans are not interfering in CO2 emissions. We're taking actions by reducing the CO2 emissions and therefore making an input in society.
But if we have the tools to make a change, then why doesn't everybody take action? We believe that it is because it comes with a cost, whether it is spending your time into something different or investing your money where you're not supposed to or usually do it.
So let's make a process all together on how to achieve enlightenment.
As you can see in the first slide of this cartoon, this person has a really deep and strengthened belief that everything that science says is true because it's empirically verifiable. But his own argument is used against him, since it is said that since that argument is not empirically verifiable itself, then it is not true. As you can see in the last slide, he falls into a deep depression because a really strong-held belief of his was just dismantled and crushed into pieces.
So I'm sure most of you have suffered some kind of, depression of being dismantled by a dogmatic idea, but it's necessary in order to reach enlightenment. So we recommend you these tips to question basic assumptions, and also, just because a superior said so, it doesn't mean it's true.
Also, understand that no one thinks critically 100% of the time. It is okay to just relax your mind and sometimes and let the thoughts flow through it. And also, be open to new possibilities. This is a very big part because to be able to just let go of a dogma, you have to be able to receive information from a different point of view.
You also have to think independently. You are the one taking decisions on your life. You are the one who wants to decide in what to believe. Also, you have to use the tools effectively. Technology, you have to use it effectively in order to make an input in society.
Take risks. Letting go of a dogma usually involves putting you in an uncomfortable or an unusual place. So you have to be brave enough to go through it. And lastly, evaluate the arguments in favor and against. Every topic of discussion has people that are in agreement and in disagreement. So just weigh out the arguments and decide for yourself why do you think it's true.
The results when following this tip and reaching enlightenment, of course, are freedom, critical thinking, independence, and of course, what we are presenting you, enlightenment.
And to really put our talk into just one quote, it would be this one. It is not the fruits of scientific research that elevate a man and enrich his nature, but the urge to understand the intellectual work, either creative or receptive. This can be seen in Guz's and my belief that we used to get magical powers when making a shot. We had the urge to understand why we didn't get those magical powers. Or in Guz's mother case, why she couldn't go swimming right after eating.
It is not that difficult as you just experienced. You just need the time and effort. And Gaviria and me ask you, do you want to be the sheep of society or do you want to be the shepherd of your own thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you.